Monica, from not really being on speaking terms to getting back together and seemingly having a great time, it appears New Hampshire Democrats and President Joe Biden can change their status tonight from it's complicated to back in a relationship, as President Biden came here to deliver a message of gratitude for that big write-in primary victory in January. Air Force One touchdown at the airport in the early afternoon. The president greeted by the federal delegation, Manchester's mayor and DNC committeeman Billy Shaheen and his daughter Stephanie Shaheen. After a quick speech in Goffstown, the presidential motorcade headed across the Queen City to a campaign field office. There, the president spoke about the stakes of this election, drawing some sharp contrasts with his opponent, former President Donald Trump. But Biden started off with a note of thanks. It was the White House that attempted to reorder the primary calendar, booting New Hampshire from its traditional first spot. The Granite State did not go along with that plan, and the president today told local Democrats he was surprised by how they carried him to such a big victory here, even though his name wasn't on the ballot.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Look, it stunned me, the write-in campaign you are. No, it really did. I was very careful not to be here. But really, I was stunned, and I was really pleased.
So from a situation in which the president, in his own words, was essentially avoiding New Hampshire, to today where he's giving his thanks and offering kudos for arguably his biggest win of the primary cycle. It's quite a turnaround, Monica, in just a matter of a few weeks.
And Adam, we know these primary fights can be bitter. They can cause a lot of problems. What are insiders saying about why this got patched up so quickly?
Well, Monica, now that the primary process is over and the focus is turning to a presidential election, which is very much a jump ball, but the unifying force here is really former President Donald Trump. Biden won New Hampshire by just about 8 points in 2020, so Democrats really can't afford to have any cracks in their blue wall as they head toward November. Monica?
Adam, thank you. And before the president made that campaign stop in Manchester, he had an official visit in Goffstown. WMUR's Ariel Metropolis is live there now with what the president had to say about healthcare costs.
Monica, this was a smaller, more intimate event here in Goffstown with close supporters of the president, and it was a quick speech. He only spoke for about 20 minutes, but the bottom line here was that he wanted to talk about how his administration has lowered health care costs. He said that he wants to make sure that health care rights for all Americans are protected. He said he spent the last 3 years trying to make sure that everyone has access to the American Care Act. He said about 65,000 Granite Staters have signed up for the ACA, and he touted his record, saying that he will protect Medicare and Social Security too.
We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. Nothing, seriously, not a joke. We're the only country that's ever come out of every crisis stronger than we went in. Stronger than we went in.
Now, the president also called out former President Trump, saying that he will cut Medicare and Social Security, but in a statement to News 9, the Trump campaign denied that. We're in Goffstown, Ariel Metropolis, WMUR, News 9.
New Hampshire Republicans gathered ahead of the president's visit to discuss the economy. Gathered at a Manchester restaurant, they talked about the higher costs of food and other necessities since President Biden took office. They pointed out that even when inflation slows down, that means prices are still rising. The head of the state Republican Party saying that will be top of mind for voters in November.
People in New Hampshire are smart. They get it. They see what's happening. You know how much you're paying in the grocery store. So I think it's a whole different ballgame than it was in 2020.
Republican leaders say another big concern for voters is the crisis at the southern border. They say Biden's policies have been a large part of the problem.